Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Chapters here on Armstrong Cable. Chapters is the television show that profiles local authors, editors, and publishers in our community. I'm Eliot Parker, and it's great to have you with us. Today, we're delighted to talk about an event that's coming up on September the 15th and runs through September the 20th in 2014, and that is the biannual Ohio River Festival of Books. And here to talk to us about the festival and the event is David Owens from the Cabell County Library, and he's also on the planning and implementation team of the Ohio River Festival of Books. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the book festival and some of the things that you can expect as we get a little bit closer to that September 15th to the 20th week. And David, first of all, welcome to Chapters. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for asking.
Talk to us a little bit about this festival. I know a lot of folks have heard of this festival. Some folks have gone to this festival in recent years. Give us a little bit of background about the history of it and how it got started.
Sure. The first Ohio River Festival of Books was in 2002. And that was the work of the Cabell County Public Library and the Adult Services Division of the library. And then we moved on from 2002, 2004, 2006 and onwards, and each festival has taken on its own atmosphere, its own theme, its own energy. Sometimes we've been fortunate enough to have the event in one location. Sometimes we've been fortunate enough not to have it in one location, where we've taken it out to the community. During the week that you were talking about, we kick off with events on the 15th and the 16th at some of our branches. We have an event at Barbersville, we have an event at Gallagher Village, we have an event at Salt Rock, and we're also going into the community the next day when we're going to Woodlands. Maria Manila will be going to Woodlands, and then on the Friday we start the weekend portion of the festival, where we don't travel. We become stationary for the event, and the event is hosted at the Big Sandy Superstore Civic Arena. And that Friday evening, the feature for that Friday will be Mark Brown, the children's author, who has delighted many people with his Arthur stories, which of course has then turned into an enormously successful PBS show. And he will be here talking about his experiences as a children's book author, and I know that my children, even though they're past the Arthur stage now, they'll be delighted to come, because this will be one of their first opportunities to experience retro chic, as it were. So, and I'm hoping that the educational community will really support Mark Brown, because he's a wonderful storyteller. He really is. I think his work with promoting values without being holier than thou, and without being I hate the phrase, but in your face about them, it is very, very good. And I'm really hoping that teachers will be delighted with this.
Let me ask you a little bit, David, about the planning that goes into something like this. I know you only do this every 2 years, but I know, in having talked to you and some other folks involved in this event, really the planning 2 years out starts after the most recent festival is finished.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the behind the scenes? How does all this come together?
It comes together through a lot of hard work, and it comes together through. Well, first of all, let me say that the first thing that we do every original meeting for a planning phase, the first thing we do is think, right, who have we got locally that we want? Because one of the important forces behind the festival is the idea to be able to have a venue for local authors, for folks who, I'm sure Empire hosts many of the same authors too, but the idea of giving them another avenue for exposure for their work, we're really keen on that. So that's the first thing, and that is my bailiwick, to work with local authors. The second thing that we do is we say, okay, who's the big name? What? And getting a big name should be relatively easy. Unfortunately, it's not, because big names are committed years in advance to tours. They're committed to producing X number of volumes over a certain amount of time, and so they're out on the road when they come out. So for the big names, I'm afraid to say that West Virginia seems to be off the radar as well. And I had experience in a retail bookstore where the publishers essentially told us that you know, it's hard to send people to West Virginia. Well, if you don't send people to West Virginia, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. So, so what we have to do is then decide, well, if not a name that's Homer or you know someone of that ilk, what can we do that's going to really excite people? What can we do that touches on important issues in the community that will attract people, bring them in, and get them to say, you know, this is an event in the area that I didn't think we hosted, that I didn't think the area supported, and yet here I am surrounded by authors with authors that I recognize from bestseller lists. So it's getting the local folk is a matter of staying on top of my emails and phone calls, but it's also it's a matter of keeping your ear to the community, reading the paper, and I must admit the newspapers are a terrific help for us in this, because the stories that you know, they'll often publish books, they'll often publish stories about books, and then we think, aha, get that person on the list, they're an author we must have. So the paper's been terrifically helpful in that. And then we try to approach the authors who organize programs. The festival is split between authors who are responsible for programming and authors who are responsible for signing. So we try to formulate the best kind of program that we can. We try to make it varied. So, for example, we have Jonathan Joy this year, a local playwright. We also have Lynn Austin, who has won awards for Christian inspirational fiction. So we try to keep it as varied as possible. We try to get a nice blend between authors who are writing for an adult audience and authors who are writing for a children's audience. And then when the children's authors come, we also tempt them, well, would you also like to go to the schools? Because we can guarantee you 600 people at a gig. And that's been a terrific part of the program. They have the authors who've gone to the schools and the schools themselves have both reported that it's been a wonderful experience for everyone. Because for some of these, for some of the children, actually meeting an author that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. You know, this is somebody who deals in a medium that, even given our digital age, people still grow up with books. So this is somebody who has actually gone through the process of an idea, creative writing, publishing, book, and they become famous just by dint of having been published. Now we all know that perhaps that's not a label that is merited all the time, but it's still very interesting to meet somebody who's gone through the process, especially if you're interested in reading or creative writing yourself. I mean, I think it can be a real fill-up to people who are interested in those matters. I think it can be a real boost to them to say, hey, well, when I spoke to so-and-so, they said, oh, I write 3 hours a day, non-stop, do it first thing in the morning. So, you know, there's a practical application to it, as well as just the sort of the love of books by osmosis, which is such an effective way of getting that around, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to ask you, too, I know this event, as you mentioned, all the people behind the scenes that put this together, but I know that the event doesn't come together without the big dollar sign or without the idea of funding and money. So where do you go to seek fundraising or money? I hate to use that term money because it makes it sound like you're paying a bill. No. But you know, where do you go to seek sources of revenue so that you can put on this festival? Who are some of the folks that you guys depend on to contribute?
The West Virginia Humanities Council have been very supportive because this is, after all, an event that provides them with this is an avenue for them to promote what the Humanities Council does, and what the Humanities Council does in the state is very, very important. It keeps people in touch with these kind of events, and it allows these kind of events to take place in the state. So they are the number one. In the past, we've also written to various institutions, grant-making institutions, both local and national. But doubtless, as I'm sure you're aware, grant writing can be, it's not always the most productive use of time sometimes,
Right.
Because the answer doesn't fit the amount of work that's been put into it.
Exactly.
Which is nobody's fault. It's just the way that particular financing works. Or sometimes doesn't. But the Humanities Council have been extremely supportive. In the past, we've had support from local businesses who've, for example, 2000 and, I want to say 8, we shared space at the Civic Centre with the Home and Garden Show. And the Pilot Club were involved with that, and they were involved with us too. So there are clubs and associations, there are private businesses, and that when those monies come in, they are very, very much appreciated. And unfortunately, we are reliant on the one source, though. The Humanities Council is our major funder. And I say unfortunately because if that fell through for any reason, it might be a 3-year planning operation.
Right, and that was going to lead me to my next question,
Yeah.
because I know there was another long-standing book festival that went by the wayside, so to speak,
Yeah.
because of funding. That was the
Yeah.
West Virginia Book Festival,
Correct.
which was every year in October, and because, short answer to a long story, because they lost their funding from the Kanawha County School Board.
Correct.
The school board now no longer has to provide revenue towards the public libraries, which they depended on to put on that festival. Now that festival's gone away. Did you find you and your organization pressure in some ways to make the Ohio River Festival of Books, I don't want to say better, but bigger, and do it better because that festival now is no longer there, and this is kind of the preeminent one left?
That's a very good question. I'd like to say that the real answer, of course, is no, because whether the West Virginia Book Festival is going on or not, we would still do ours, regardless of theirs. It's a very sad situation that's happened in Kanawha County. I don't feel that we competed. I think that there was enough difference between timing when we would host our festival and when they would have theirs, and obviously the different counties have different loyalties. They are able to draw more from the interior of the state, I suppose. We are able to draw more from Ashland, Kentucky, and over in Ohio. So we have the tri-state audience, whereas they had the sort of Kanawha and environs audience. So I don't know necessarily that there was much competition. And for real book lovers, of course, they're going to do both festivals anyway. So it's not going to be a either or. It's going to be, well, let's do both. Kanawha did host their book sale this year, and we are planning to have a Friends book sale to accompany our festival as well. Friends of the Library, one of the great institutions of the public library, and they will be selling used books too. So that's another reason why people should come.
Oh, absolutely. I wanted to ask you too about you mentioned earlier in your comments about getting the big name, quote unquote, to come, and sometimes getting stymied there because the attitude is, well, why would you go to West Virginia?
Yeah.
But I know you are having some writers from this area who maybe aren't on the level of James Patterson, but I know you have Glenn Taylor coming.
Oh, yes.
I know you have
for sure.
John Billheimer coming.
Yes.
Can you tell us about some of the ones that are already committed to coming to the festival?
Certainly. Well, Glenn Taylor will be coming. Sheila Redling, who's had terrific success with her Amazon publishing. I think the last time I spoke with Sheila, she'd sold an enormous amount of books in a very short time, and had kind of taken the Amazon publishing world a little bit by storm. So we're delighted that Sheila's going to be here. We're going to have excuse me, we're going to have Jacinda Townsend, who is an up-and-coming author who's just had her first fiction work published. She's coming from North Carolina by way of Indiana, so not quite state local. Carter Seaton will be at the festival. She's been very loyal to us, and she's been a great friend of the festival. Ethan Uslin will be here, who has a connection with the area. He'll be here. He'll be actually at the museum on Saturday evening, the 20th, the closing day from 6 till 8. And he is a pianist who plays music for black and white films. And there is somebody will be there from the University of North Carolina who is going to talk us through a film by Mary Pickford. And that's up at the museum, so that's our closing thing. Mark Harshman from the state, he'll be here. Mark, well known as a children's book author, of course, but he's also a poet, and he's published a work of West Virginia poetry. So that we try to get as a blend of people whose name recognition is strong in the area, and people for whom they might think, I've never heard of them, but gosh, that does not look interesting. Sure. You know, so we try to get that right combination. Another local author will be Bob Barnett, who's published a book on West Virginia sports, which is a terrific read. I mean, really, it's
a great book.
Yeah, very much enjoyed that. And he's been known to bring along a guest or two who are featured in the book, so I'll be interested to see who we might be able to get a hold of there to who might have a really strong name recognition and connection with sport in the state.
And listening to you kind of go through your list of authors that are going to be there, you're exactly right. There really is a mix of everything for everybody. I mean, if you like sports, if you like this kind of genre, that kind of genre, mm-hmm. children's fiction, nonfiction, poetry, it's all going to be represented there. I want to ask you a little bit about the negotiating process when you're working with some of the bigger names. What is that like? I know you probably can't say everything, but are you working through an agent? Are you working through a company? Do you ever speak to the authors directly? Yes. How does that work?
Yeah, well, we try to speak to the authors directly first. Because we have much better luck than when going through an agent. If you're going through an agent, they'll say, that's $50,000, no ifs, ands, and buts. Send us the check, we'll send you the author. If you contact the author, they might say, yeah, Aunt Sally lives in Richmond. I can go and see her on my way down there, so I'll show up. And so we do have better luck trying to go through the authors. We have I don't know that there'll be, this is not breaking any secrets here. We have a database at work, Reference USA, somebody's name, and we know where they live. We just plug it in, find their phone number, give them a call, and say, would you like to come to a book festival? 9 times out of 10, they say, yeah, sure, when is it?
That's great.
And we say, don't tell your agent. And they say, no, I won't tell my agent.
Let's keep the agent silent on that.
I mean, it is one of the difficult things about the industry, the book selling industry, is the fees that these New York Times bestsellers command. I mean, mm-hmm. We're talking 30 to 50,000, and that's a substantial sum of money. That is not, not many institutions have that to throw around, mm-hmm. And it's a shame because, like I said, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And I know that with the book festival too, in terms of the schedule and the setup, it's been done differently in previous mm-hmm. years. I know this year you're sort of condensing it down to that September 15th to 20th sure. time frame, and everything's finishing up at the Big Sandy Superstore Arena. I know at times it's been a little longer than a week. It's gone mm-hmm. over 2 weeks, and there's been events at different places. How did you come? Do you try to mix it up for every 2 years?
We do. We do try to mix it up because one of the really pleasant responses we have is when we go into the community, when we have authors, and we have them outside of the festival. There are authors who come to our branches and do events there during the year as well. But this gives us the opportunity to make a real community push, to be able to say, okay, well, let's get into the schools, let's get into the branches, let's get into any institution that wants to have a connection with this festival, who wants to listen to an author or wants to have some sort of programming. So that's a really, really important part of what we do. In terms of having the one location kind of event, that's an important thing too, because it gives in the public's mind, it gives it a location of place, a geographical location that they can connect with. Oh, that's where they have the festival, and then it's nice in the week's events building up to that they'll see these advertised in the paper and they'll think, well, hey, that is where they have the festival, but there are these other things going on too. And like I say, I really do think getting out into the community is it's a hugely important part of what we hope to achieve with the festival.
So if someone is planning on coming to the festival in September for the first time, or maybe someone's coming and they're a veteran of the festival, what do you hope when they leave on the 20th? What do you hope they take with them throughout the rest of that month or the rest of that year about the festival, about the Ohio River Festival of Books?
Apart from lots of books that they'll buy, of course, what I hope that they will take with them is a sense of community, a sense of a shared cultural endeavor that they feel very much part of as well. That it's not just, well, push these people out there, here are the authors, you come in, but that there is a relationship that develops with the festival and the attendees who recognize that this, like I say, this is all part and parcel of a cultural endeavor that we're all committed to. I mean, people wouldn't come to a book festival expecting soup, so we're all committed to books. It's organized by a library. It's advertised in the paper and on radio and on the television, true, but it's advertised in the newspaper where people will read it. This is all about print format, and, well, not just print format, because of course the industry is changing. Witness Sheila's terrific success, but this is all about creating this community of readers and hopefully writers too, because hopefully it will inspire people to continue their writing or to take up a pen or a keyboard for the first time.
That's great. Yeah. David, finally, as we finish up in our closing moments here, if someone has questions, comments about the Ohio River Festival of Books, or they want to keep track of what's going on with the festival as we get closer to September, how can they do that?
They can do it one of three ways. They can go to ohioriverbooks.org, which is the website for the book festival. They can call the public library or or their branch. They can find out from them, or better yet, they can come into the library, and we'll be glad to tell them.
That's great. Fantastic. With David Owens from the Cabell County Public Library and a member of the Ohio River Festival of Books organization, thank you so much for coming in to tell us a little bit about this great festival. And I certainly hope our viewers who have never gone to this before, if it's been a few years since they've attended, will check it out, because it truly is a spectacular event, and you folks do a great job.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for coming on with us today. Appreciate it so much, and we look forward to the festival.
You bet.
And we also want to say a special thanks to our friends at Empire Books and News here at Pullman Square in Huntington. We appreciate them providing our studio taping space today. And if you're looking for something to read, we invite you and encourage you to stop by Empire Books and News. They've got the largest selections of magazines in the tri-state, plus all kinds of reading material for any genre of reading that you are a fan of. So stop by, talk to Charlotte and her staff. They'll be happy to get you set up with any kind of books or magazines that you're looking for here at Empire Books and News at Pullman Square in downtown Huntington. And finally, if you have a question, comment, or suggestion about this chapter's program or any chapter's program you've seen here on Armstrong Cable, we want to hear from you. You can send us an email to the link right at the bottom of the screen here, lp4@zoominternet.net. We appreciate all the feedback that we receive, so keep those comments and thoughts coming. lp4@zoominternet.net is how you can reach us right here on the show. And that's going to do it for us this time on Chapters. Please come again next time, and in the meantime, stay tuned to this station for news and views that impact you and your community.